So you have just released your first solo album, Living Between the Lines, and it's full of collaborations. How has the whole creation process been and working with all those artists?
It was really easy because the people that I collaborated with on the album are all people that I had relationships with, and they're all old friends of mine. So, for instance, when my band, the Street Walkin Cheetahs, first started off a million years ago in the 90s, one of the first bands that we ever played gigs with were the Bell Rays. They were always good friends of ours back in the day. We recorded songs together and singles together and did lots of concerts together. So, Lisa and I go way, way, way back. Like, I mean, over 30 years. When the Street Walkin Cheetahs first started touring outside of Southern California, among the first sort of bigger bands that took a liking to us and brought us out on the road was the Super Suckers. So Eddie Spaghetti and I go way back. We're old friends. We already made a record together a few years ago. So we've got history there. And Cherie Curry, I mean, look, I'm still a fan. I mean, I'm a fan of Cherie Curry. The Runaways are one of my favorite bands of all time. Joan Jett was the first artist that really got me excited about rock and roll and kind of the idea of like that rock meant was a big that music might have some sort of future for me. And the Runaways were big for me, but in the early days of the Cheetahs, we only played cover songs. So one of the songs that we played was Cherry Bomb. And we were such nerdy fans for Cherie and the Runaways that we went to one of her shows with albums and to ask her autograph. Like we saw the concert of her and Sandy West. We're like, we're big fans, and my name's Frank, and that's Dino. We play in a band called the Street Walkin Cheetahs, and we do Cherry Bomb. Will you sign my album? And she was like, "Yeah, when are you guys playing?" And we said, "Oh, we're playing this club like in a week." And she's like, "Well, I'll come down and sing Cherry Bomb with you." And we went, "Well, sure, that'd be amazing." We thought, "Well, that will never happen," and she did. She showed up a week later and got on stage and played Cherry Bomb with us, and we became really good friends and we started collaborating, and that had a lot to do with kind of why the Street Walkin Cheetahs even kind of became a known enough band to get a record deal and stuff. So Cherie, Lisa, and Eddie are all old friends who are very intertwined with my career, so it kind of made sense to have them be on the album. They're like family.
Oh, that's really amazing. I really like the Runaways too.
I mean, who doesn't love the Runaways? Cherry Bomb. I mean, Cherry Bomb is in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, if your
I really
music is,
agree with that.
if superheroes are fighting to your song, you wrote a good song.
And what is the song you like to compose the most of your new album?
What was the question?
What is the song you like to compose the most from your new album?
Well, the funny thing is, so I'm coming out to Spain. Um, Well, I'm coming out in a week to do a tour with Handsome Dick Manitoba from the Dictators, and then I'm following that with my solo tour. And the solo tour, I have a band, but it's to promote the solo album. And that will be the first time that I've played some of these songs live. A few of them are songs that I've played live many times, but a few of them, like the single Blue Radio, I've never played it live. So I would say that's a song that I've never played live, getting to go halfway around the world and debut it for fans of mine um, on a different continent is kind of amazing. So I would say I'm probably the most excited about playing the songs that are new to me and new to the audience. But I'm gonna mix it up and do like material from the solo record plus some songs by my other bands, the Street Walkin Cheetahs and Trading Aces. But yeah, I would say the second single on the record is called Blue Radio, and it's very kind of a poppy, kind of a happy. I mean, the content's not happy; it's about death. But it's a very poppy song and a very kind of an Amy Winehouse thing where it's like got this real pop groove, and so I'm really excited to play that because that's not material that I normally play. I'm more known for being a punk rock guy, so the idea of getting to go out there and sing these really, really tight, precise, cool little pop songs in addition to my rock and roll stuff, that's very exciting for me. It's kind of new territory.
And what do you think is the song that the public is liking the most?
I would say, well, I mean, I've probably gotten the most reaction from the song Blue Radio. It's probably the most different sounding song on the album from anything I've ever done, but people seem to really react to it. I get a lot of people who tell me that, why, I heard that song on Blue Radio and I can't get it out of my head. It's like, they call it, we have an expression, an earworm, where it's like it gets in your head and it doesn't leave. And that's kind of what I was trying to do with that song, is write a song that was so catchy it could almost be like in a TV commercial, like a jingle, something you just hear it once, Blue Radio, Blue Radio, you know. And so that was sort of the idea with the whole album. Really, was to write kind of the catchiest songs I could. But people are really reacting to that one. There's also a song called Baby Dynamite that is probably a little closer to what I do in terms of it's high energy rock and roll. It's got kind of a Cheap Trick power pop thing. People seem to like that song, and I'm doing all that stuff live on the tour. So we'll see what they how they feel after they hear me play it live.
They will love it, I'm sure. So you are coming to Spain on two tours, both
Yeah,
solo and with your band, one of your main bands.
one of them. Yeah,
How do you feel about it? Are you excited?
yeah. I'm very excited. I mean, Spain is a place that really means a lot to me. When I launched my, I mean, really before I even launched a career, when I graduated college, um, I went on a backpacking trip around Europe by myself, me in a backpack. And I spent 2 weeks of it in Spain, in Madrid and Barcelona. And that was really the first time that I'd ever been out of the country, out of the United States, been by myself for weeks at a time. I didn't have any, my parents weren't around, there was no friends. I just went by myself, and I immediately made some friends. I immediately met this guy named Kike Termix, who played in a band called the Pleasure Fuckers, and they were a big band out of Madrid, and he owned a record label, and he let me come to his house, and he offered for me to stay there, and then he took me to El Sol in Madrid to go see the Dictators, and that's where I first met Handsome Dick Manitoba. Now, all these years later, I'm on tour in Spain with Handsome Dick Manitoba. So, you know what I mean? It's very full circle. It's like, in a lot of ways, my career really kind of began in a lot of ways when I went to Spain as a kid. I met these people, got some action happening with my band, came back. That's when the Street Walkin Cheetahs got signed to Bomp Records, just sort of during that same period, and things started taking off. When the Cheetahs first went to Europe, we went to Spain, and we were immediately embraced, and we did really well, and we went back. Um, all these years later, when I decided to really start touring Europe hard again, I started in Spain because I figured that's sort of where people might know me the best, and it did well. I launched my band Trading Aces there. The Cheetahs have come back there. I'm launching my solo career there. The people are great. They love good music. The food's great. The culture's great. It's like, and I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on in the United States right now, but it's not doing so well. So I'm happy to get the hell out of here and come on over to my friends in Spain.
Well, but there are things in every country, so. But and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You have to add 80 more.
yeah,
Sounds
yeah.
And do you have any rituals to prepare before going on a stage?
Well, I mean, this tour, or this whole next month, is kind of unusual because first, I'm coming out there and I'm doing about 2 weeks with Handsome Dick Manitoba. And for those of you that don't know, he was the singer of the Dictators, which is a legendary New York punk band who, like the Ramones, were very instrumental in the beginning of punk rock. And as I mentioned, I'm a big Dictators fan, and I met Manitoba the first time I came to Spain before I was even in the Street Walkin Cheetahs in 1994, I think it was. And so it means a lot to me to be coming out here and doing this tour playing guitar with Manitoba. Then that ends, and I 3 days later start the tour for my solo record with a totally different band. Ivan Tombak, who's from Torrevieja and lives in Spain. He's from, he's Spanish. He's on drums. Christian Kimmett from Love Hate is on bass. Ozzy Carmona from the States is on keyboards and guitar. We're going to rehearse for 3 days in Torrevieja, work out this whole new set, and then immediately start touring for that. So over the course of like 5 weeks, I'm doing two separate tours with two separate bands, two totally different set lists. And in one band, I'm playing lead guitar, and in the other band, I'm playing rhythm guitar, lead guitar, and singing lead vocals. So for me, to answer your question, it's a lot of practice over and over again. Like the way that I get prepared for tours now, because I play in so many bands, is if I've got a tour coming up, I just run through the whole set at least once a day. So when we're done with this interview, I'll call up my playlist here and I'll run through the whole Manitoba set for about an hour and play through every note. And then I'll switch over to the playlist of my solo band set and I'll play through that for an hour or so and sing through it and look at the lyrics and just kind of, it's like muscle memory is an expression. It's like I just try to do it so much and so much repetition that that when I close my eyes, I don't have to even think about it. I can just see the words and the music, and it just and my fingers just start doing the talking. Because I'm also playing with Fear, which is a legendary Los Angeles-based hardcore punk band. I'm the guitarist in Fear, and that is a whole other set of material. There's about 30 something songs I have to know for the Fear set. I also play with Leaving from Fear's country band Range War, and that's another 20 songs that I've got to know for that. Plus, I'm in the Street Walkin Cheetahs, and that's a huge amount of material, and Trading Aces, which is also a lot of material. So I kind of at all times have to know about 200 songs and be ready to just play any one of them at any time, whatever my role is in that song. And so the only way to do that is to constantly be practicing, which is, by the way, funny because I have not practiced a day in my life since I was a teenager until recently. Meaning once I learned how to play guitar and write songs, for me, I was not practicing guitar every day. I was writing songs every day. My whole thing was I wasn't concerned with being Eddie Van Halen, although he's one of my heroes. But I knew that I was never going to be like a virtuoso guitar player. I've seen, virtuosos, and I'm not that. But I knew that I was always a gifted songwriter and good on the guitar and good at singing, and that if I kind of put all that together, that was sort of my voice, is the kind of like, writing the songs and kind of leading the band. I got to be good enough on guitar that now I can just get hired to play guitar in these other bands like Fear and Manitoba. But, the way my brain works is I've just got to kind of practice it all. So meaning like for years when all I did was the Street Walkin Cheetahs, where I wrote the songs about me, well, I don't have to practice that much for that. You know what I mean? But now if I'm doing six different bands and each one has 20, 30 songs I got to know, and I have different roles in each band. Some I'm lead guitar, some I'm rhythm guitar, some I'm singing lead vocals, some I'm singing backing vocals. That takes a lot of muscle memory. And listen, I've drank a lot of alcohol in my day. I smoked a lot of weed. My brain is a little crazy. So, you know what I mean? Like I have to, if I want to memorize something, I got to run through it a lot.
And where do you find the inspiration to write the lyrics of the song?
I guess it sort of depends on the song, songs in a way sort of write themselves. And I don't mean that to sound like some hippie stuff. I just mean that like there's times when you sit down and you have, you hear the title, you read something, you see something on TV, someone says something, and you go, "Ooh, that's a kind of a cool idea for a song." So sometimes you might go into the process with some idea that's maybe sending you down that path, but a lot of times they just come. Like you don't really even have control over it. You just get an idea and you don't know where the hell it came from. When I wrote Blue Radio, for instance, the song is about, like, it's like a love story, a guy and a girl, and they go to a carnival, and she wins him a blue radio, like a toy blue radio, and then she dies, and he just forever listens to music through the blue radio, but through the filter of like what could have been. Like that was my love, that was my life, like this whole other life that could have happened. And so he feels tragedy every time he's looking at the blue radio, but then starts to see it as like, oh no, it's actually, this is the way that I communicate with her now, is through the music and through this sort of gift of having this thing that she left me with. I don't know where the hell that idea came from. Like, I didn't win a blue radio. I don't go to carnivals very often. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, I don't know. It's just like one day I just kind of thought of that and grabbed a guitar and literally just went bump, 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 and just boom, the whole thing just came. So sometimes you get these ideas that are, it's like a poem, like an idea comes to you and it has a certain flow, the way that the words should be organized, how much they should rhyme or how much they shouldn't rhyme, and where they should rhyme, and a sort of a structure starts to appear. This is the hook, this is the chorus, the rest is going to be these verses that are building towards this bigger idea. The verses give you the specifics, and the bigger idea is the chorus, and then maybe you're going to change the color of that scene in the bridge, because that's where things change a little bit. That starts to sort of, you start to sort of visualize it. But a lot of times it's personal things. I mean, that's just if I get this idea out of nowhere. Sometimes on this record there's a song called Dead Winter, and that song is about my mom, and my mom was dying of cancer, and we had a very complicated relationship, and I was tending to her, but I was also kind of tortured by her, and as was most of our relationship in our life, a combination of love and torture, and like all parents. But so as I was going through this very dark time, I wrote this very autobiographical song about my life with my mom and just all this stuff, and you know um, that was all steeped in reality. And I grabbed a guitar, and the ideas kind of came, but so they come from different places. Sometimes it comes from your life because you're going through heavy stuff, or you're inspired by something beautiful, and sometimes you just get this crazy idea. I mean, there's a song on the record called Partners in Crime where Eddie Spaghetti and I just rob a bank and shoot a bunch of cops and run off to Mexico. Let me assure you, on the record, of course, we did not rob a bank, and we have not murdered any police officers. And while we both have been to Mexico, we've never been to Mexico together on the run. But that just seemed like a good idea for a song. I was like, man, what if me and Eddie rode down to Mexico, shot a bunch of motherfuckers, and got it down, robbed a bank, and blood and guts, and some Quentin Tarantino stuff. That seemed like a fun song to write.
And what are your references in music apart from Van Halen and the Runaways?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Who are your references in music?
Oh, references. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Um, I mean, I have a lot. I think all musicians, no matter what genre you play, I think we all have a lot of influences that go into what we do. So, in terms of as a songwriter, I'd say Tom Petty is a big influence. The Rolling Stones are big influences. Those are the guys that I kind of studied to sort of learn how to write a song and how to organize my ideas and what a hook was. Those are the guys that when I was younger, I used for inspiration to kind of just figure out how to become a songwriter. But it was Eddie Van Halen, hearing Van Halen and hearing the sound of his guitar that made me pick up an instrument. I'd say Joan Jett was the first musician I became obsessed with. Eddie Van Halen was the thing that made me, once I already was becoming obsessed with music, then all of a sudden I heard this one musician do this one thing on this one instrument, and I was like, that's what I got to do. So I started playing guitar, and then when I started kind of understanding guitar enough, songwriting became kind of like my mission. And Tom Petty and the Stones were probably my instrumental kind of how-to guides to how to write a song. And then as I went on, Iggy Pop obviously is a big influence. I mean, my band's called the Street Walkin Cheetahs. We're named after a line in the Iggy Pop song, and certainly there's a high energy to my approach with performing that I think connects with um, artists like Iggy Pop and the MC5 and the Dead Boys and that kind of punk energy. Um, but I was also a metalhead growing up, so I loved Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and stuff. So I don't know. And then also I'm a huge blues fan, and Buddy Guy, Chicago bluesman Buddy Guy, is a big, big, big influence on me. So I think when you take all of that, that's kind of that's who I am as a person and as a songwriter, and you can kind of hear all that. I think a lot of times people hear Cheap Trick as a big influence for me, and they're not wrong about that. Cheap Trick are a big, big, big influence. I always try to on every album write one song that sounds like it could be a Cheap Trick song. I feel like that's a good formula. Um, But so meaning, it's funny, but like the bands that I sound the most like are the bands that inspired me when I was 13 years old and I first got into music. When I got into music, I was a heavy metal loving, punk rock loving, classic rock loving kid that loved the blues, and that's kind of still who I am.
So you started playing at 13.
I picked up the guitar around 12, and uh, I was really bad at sports. And when you're a boy, especially an American boy, baseball, football, hot dogs, apple pie, all that America stuff. When you're an American boy, especially when I grew up, like everyone plays sports. All you're sort of taught and told to do is play sports. And I wanted to play sports. I tried. I tried everything. I tried basketball, baseball, football, track, running, and I was mediocre at all of them. I was not very good at all of them. And so I wasn't super tall, I liked creative writing. But I don't know, I didn't really fit into like the stuff that most of my friends liked doing. They all love Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff. I didn't like that stuff either. I like playing video games, but and I love music. I love Joan Jett, and I love listening to the radio, and I loved the music that was on the radio. But when I picked up the guitar, a friend of mine handed me his guitar and said, "Oh yeah, man, look at this! I can play Black Sabbath." And he showed me the riff to Iron Man, and he kind of barely sort of struggled to play it. And then he handed it to me, and I went, down, 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 and he was like, "Whoa, cool! How long you been playing?" I was like, "I've never played that thing in my life. I just watched what you did, and I just tried to do that." And he's like, "What? Well, try this." And he showed me Smoke on the Water, which is almost the same riff. And and he played it and kind of struggled through it. And then he handed me his guitar, and I went da na 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 na, and like boom. And he's like, "Wow, you're a natural." And I had never heard anyone describe me that way. I've never been a natural at anything. In fact, I sucked at everything. And so suddenly, when this thing that I thought was really cool, which was a guitar, and was connected to the only thing that I actually really loved at that point in my life, music, and this kid's telling me that I'm a natural at it. I mean, I went home and, Mom, I got to get a guitar, and saved up and got a guitar and started taking lessons. And it was the only thing where I had my allowance, and I paid, from doing chores around the house, and I paid to get guitar lessons. And I stopped doing sports, and I sat in my room and went that, practice my chords, practice my scales. And within about a year of that, by the time I was about 13, I started my first band, and by 14 was playing clubs in LA, like playing the Troubadour and the Whiskey and the Roxy as a little kid. I was in like ninth grade, I think. So really young, and I just kind of knew, I mean, that's what I do now. I mean, I knew it was my calling. I knew.
You were a baby playing the guitar.
I really was. And I had just a lot of, I was lucky because I grew up in Los Angeles, which was a city with a lot of music. And I grew up in a time when I was a little kid in the 80s and 90s. I mean, Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s, the first bands that I saw, and these were when these were unsigned local bands without record deals: Guns N' Roses, Jane's Addiction, Fishbone, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Faster Pussycat, Poison. I mean, these were the Hangmen. These bands were these were the local bands. No record deals yet. Everyone was these were the bands you'd go and see play for like 25 people. And then eventually 200 people, and then they got a record deal, and 2,000 people, and then 20,000 people. But so, to start young, and then those are the bands that are part of your little music scene. I mean, how are you not gonna kind of go down that path?
I would really like to have those local bands still here.
I was lucky too because one of my good friends was this kid named Dweezil Zappa, and Dweezil's dad was Frank Zappa, and Frank had a recording studio in the house, and we used to go to the Zappas all the time when we were little kids, teenagers, adults, and so I also had this advantage that I knew someone that was a musician whose dad was a famous musician, and there was all these guitars always around, and there was musical instruments and a recording studio. I did my first recordings in Frank Zappa's studio. So I also had that advantage that maybe a lot of other kids didn't have, where I had this dream and I had this inspiration, but I also had experts around me, people that were accomplished that were like, sure, you can, yeah, come on in here. Come on over here, kid. Let me show you this. Yeah.
With what word would you define yourself as a musician?
Bloody. uh, or dirty. What I do is I get my hands dirty. Uh, you know, you can see I've got, I don't know if you can see, but I got scars all over my body. I've been doing this for a long time. I have beaten myself to a bloody pulp over this music and over rock and roll and over my philosophy that every time you get on stage and perform, you should be giving it your all. I mean, you leave nothing left. You give it 100%, and then you're dead at the end of the night. And resurrected for the next show, and like a zombie. But I think that what I've done is, or what I do is, I give you my everything. So yeah, I mean, it's bloody in the sense that, like, my music is messy. My music has all parts of my heart and my soul just splattered all over the place, and then mixed in with a lot of bullshit and lies and crazy ass stories about robbing banks and violence and mayhem and all that stuff. As we artists do, you mix your own story mixed with your fantasies, and that becomes sort of, your art is a mix of fiction and nonfiction. And when I go on stage, I bleed for the audience, I sweat for the audience, I'm in the audience. So I leave myself on the stage. There's an expression, getting your hands dirty. I'm not someone that's standing away from the action, having people do my bidding. I get out there and I'm crawling on the damn floor, preaching my music straight, grabbing you by the collar, singing it right in your face, putting the microphone in your face, handing you my guitar, letting you play my guitar, bringing you up on stage, bringing the band into the audience. Um, so I leave it all out there. So I would describe what I do as somewhere between bloody, dirty, and honest. Except that I'm often lying, so I guess maybe honest isn't totally accurate.
And is there any lyric of a song that has touched you?
Is there any what?
Any lyric of a song, any song that has touched you emotionally?
Um, you mean songs that I'm doing, or so? You mean, is there any other music I'm listening to? I'm not sure what the question is.
From other bands, yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Boy, what have I heard? Well, there's a band I really like called the Viagra Boys. I don't know if you know Viagra Boys.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I I like them a lot, and they have a new record. I've been listening to that. Trying to think what other newer bands that I like. There's a band out of Italy called Judah. I don't know if you know Judah. Uh, Last year Fear did a tour with them, and I was already a fan of Judah, but seeing them in person every night blew me away. They're so good, and they're so great live, and such a great energy, and share that sort of philosophy I do about leaving it all on the stage. So Judah's a favorite. There's another band that Fear toured with that I like a lot is this band out of Baltimore here in the United States called War on Women, and they're sort of a feminist punk, sort of a modern feminist punk rock band. And I really like them, their energy, their sound, their philosophies just about life and freedom and stuff. I really related to sort of what they were saying with their music. So yeah, I guess those are sort of some of the newer bands I've been listening to. But these days it's like when you name a new band, then you go, "Oh, they've been around 10 years." I mean, Viagra Boys aren't a new band, but they're new-ish. War on Women, they've been out there grinding for a while. They're doing the work. Same with Judah, they've been around, but these are new to most people. Yeah.
Like I mean, new for you.
Well, nothing's new for me. I've seen it all, baby.
Have you seen any Spanish band live?
Hey, what?
Any Spanish band live?
Oh, I mean, I have. I'm trying to think. Recently, any good ones? The last couple tours that I've done over there, there wasn't a lot of opening bands actually. There's a band called there used to be a band called Ultra Cuerpos that I loved out there. I'm not sure if they're still around anymore though. Um, and there's I don't know. Not really. I would love to say there are, but like the reality is, the last couple times that I've toured over there, they haven't been a lot of opening bands. They just put me on as the headliner, and they don't have a lot of opening bands. So I haven't really seen any like newer bands lately, which is kind of a drag. I mean, my drummer Yvonne plays in a band called Smokin' Bird. I like them a lot. But again, I don't know if they're super new necessarily, but they're a great band.
And is there any band you would like to see live?
Well, clearly, I need to see more Spanish bands live because I'm out of the loop on that one. Yeah, so actually on this Manitoba tour, we actually have a bunch of opening bands. A lot of times when I go out, it's a weird thing. In the United States, there's always other bands on every bill. When I go to Europe, if it's a festival, there'll be lots of other bands. But a lot of times when we do clubs, there's just like a DJ and then we play. So I kind of feel like I haven't really seen a lot of great bands from Spain that are like newer bands. Um, but let's see, bands. Anyone else? Anyone out there I want to see? Well, I know. I mean, one of my favorite bands ever I've never seen, which is the Wild Hearts. I'm just a big fan of the Wild Hearts, and they don't tour the United States very often, so I've never seen them before. And a friend of mine went to Scotland, and he doesn't even know the Wild Hearts, and he was in Scotland for 3 days, and he's like, "Hey, I'm at some club seeing a band." I'm like, "Oh yeah, who you seeing?" He's like, "The Wild Hearts." I'm like, "You son of a bitch." I was like, I've loved the Wild Hearts for 30 years. I've never seen them. You go to Scotland for like 3 days and the Wild Hearts happen to be playing. Um, but that's a band I like a lot. Michael Monroe just toured here in the United States, and I've seen him before, but I'm a huge fan. So I was on tour with Fear when he played in LA, so I missed the show. But that's one whenever I can, I'd like to go see Michael Monroe again because he's always fantastic. Um, and yeah, that's probably about it, I guess.
I, I think Kim is coming to Spain this year.
He tours a lot. Yeah, I'm sure he probably is. I'm sure he probably
I've never
is.
seen him, but I think I will see
I-
him.
I'll tell you what I saw the other night. I saw a concert the other night that I did not expect to like as much as I did. I went with my wife to go see Beyonce in concert. And I'm not really like a big fan of that kind of pop music. I like, look, everyone knows Beyonce's music. I know some of her songs, and they're great. They're pop songs, not my thing, but whatever. But I do like her Cowboy Carter record, and she does a Dolly Parton song on there, and she does a Beatles song, and I heard a couple other songs I like. My wife's a big fan, so she was like, "Hey, you want to go to Beyonce with me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Man, that concert was killer. It was so good. It was giant. She sings her ass off. The band was great. Lots of big visuals and theatrics. She sang a Dolly Parton song while riding a horseshoe, like in the air of this stadium. It was bananas. I thought it was great. I've never really been. I kind of realized that I'd never actually been to like a pop show like that. I've been to rock, country, blues, heavy metal, punk rock. I'd never gone to just a straight pop show like that. And I kind of thought that I either would hate it or get really bored, but it was a 3-hour concert and I was absolutely into it for every second. It was great. So there you go. That I might not be as edgy as you think I am.
Will you go to more pop concerts in the future?
I don't know if I'll. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna go. I don't think I'm exactly gonna be running to go see Lady Gaga next time she comes to town. But I will say that, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the solo record, is the older I get, the more open to new ideas I become. And, I like the idea of expanding my sound, of expanding my interests in life, of expanding the places that I see, the foods that I eat, the people that I meet. There's a lot of people who go, I like this, and this is the only thing I like, and I'm going to be over here with what I like. Well, I'm not like that. I like to learn new things and meet new people and get new information. And I like to, as much as humanly possible, to grow as a human. And so for me, if someone says, "Oh, you want to go do something that you haven't ever done before," unless it sounds terrifying, like I don't know if I'd want to jump out of a plane. That doesn't really sound great to me. So maybe I'll pass on that. But if someone says, "You want to try this new food, you want to go to this concert, you want to go see a movie, something, a piece of art, do something, an experience, an activity that you haven't done before," I generally try to be open to that and be open to the idea that maybe I'll learn or enjoy something that I didn't expect to learn or enjoy. And I try to put that into my music in the sense of having my music, slowly expand over time. So I'm not just in here doing the same thing all the time. This is my comfort zone. But the older I get, the more I want to be out of my comfort zone and do new things and try new things. I'll always kind of be who I am, but I think that it's okay to be who you are, stick to your guns, but still be open to new ideas.
We'll see you dancing like Beyonce on the stage.
Yeah, I'll be opening up for Beyonce on the next tour. I think that'd be pretty exciting.
And is there any message you would like to give to the people who is watching us?
Well, I would love you guys to come out and see the Living Between the Lines tour. The album is called Living Between the Lines. It's on Kitten Robot Records. It's out now. In Europe, it's out through Cargo, which is their distributor, so you can get it, online or through a record store or whatever. And this tour is the first time where I've really gone out and I'm playing my body of work. I've been playing music now for a long time, multiple bands. A lot of people know me from different things. And part of why I made this solo record and part of why I'm going out on tour is the idea that, like, I just want to get out there and be me and play songs that I've written. And if I'm in the Street Walkin Cheetahs, I sort of have to, which I still am, but if I'm doing a concert with the Street Walkin Cheetahs, I play material by the Street Walkin Cheetahs. If I'm out with Trading Aces, I'm playing the Trading Aces material. If I'm doing an album with Eddie Spaghetti from the Super Suckers or James Williamson from the Stooges, it's that body of work. But I'm the connecting dot between all that stuff. And so at some point I was like, can I just go out and play the songs that I've written across all my bands and not have to worry? And not have to worry about, well, if this guy is not there, then I can't do this. And if I don't have these guys, can't call it this. So at some point, I just was like, you know what? If I start putting out these solo records, not only does it give me an excuse to sort of expand my songwriting capabilities, but it gives me an excuse to go out on the road and play whatever the fuck I want. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm going to do a couple Cheetah songs, couple Trading Aces songs, couple songs off the Eddie Spaghetti record, couple songs I wrote with James Williamson, a whole bunch of stuff from the solo record, couple cover songs that I've never done before. And it's all me, and I don't have to kind of worry about what the lineup is. It's always going to be great musicians. I got great musicians on this tour. When I do it in the United States, it might be a slightly different collection of musicians, but that's okay because it's me doing my thing with a bunch of great musicians playing my catalog, and it's about goddamn time.
If you had to play all the songs that you have from your career, it would be an eternal show.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know if I could do that. Quite frankly, I mean, if you go with all the material across all those bands, plus, I also there's a lot of stuff like, I mean, I don't even know. A lot of people don't even know this, but like, there's a heavy metal artist named Thor. You know, Thor. He's like a gladiator heavy
Yes.
metal. I've written I've written songs on almost every single Thor album over the last 20 years, and I play guitar on a lot of that stuff. I've produced a lot of it. I'm like kind of behind the scenes with Thor. So in addition to all this other stuff, I got a whole bunch of heavy metal songs about lightning and thunder and devils and she demons and snake monsters and that I've written too. That's part of my catalog too. At some point, I might have to throw a couple Thor songs in the set. But yeah, I mean, it's just honestly, dude, it's just awesome that I even had this opportunity to play music and to travel and play it for people, and to have this kind of career where I can write a heavy metal song with this guy and a punk song with this band, and then do a pop song over here, country song over here, and to be able to kind of bob and weave between that at this point is like, it's magical. It's great.
So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank
It's
you.
been a
Appreciate
pleasure to
it.
meet you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I really hope to do another interview in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And if will I see you at any of the shows? Are we hitting? Are we either with the Manitoba tour or the solo tour? Am I gonna see you out at one of these gigs?
I I need to take my agenda. I
Well,
don't
you
know.
you you got my info. You get in touch if you want to come. I'll take care of you for any of these gigs. But yeah, I'm doing like 2 weeks with Manitoba and 2 weeks on my own. So hopefully you and all your friends and everyone that's watching this can make it down, and you'll be hearing a lot of rock and roll from a lot of different parts of my career. But I think it's going to be fun and wild. And like I said, my philosophy is you leave it all on stage. So if I'm still walking at the end of the night, I have not done my job. If you're still walking at the end of the night, I have not done my job.
So I really hope to go. I will
Thank
let
you.
you know.
Awesome.
And
Cool.
I will listen to your new album. Partners in
Thank you.
Crime is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It's
like
the
I
one
said,
I love
the
the most.
yeah. Listen, on every one of my albums, no matter what the band, there's always going to be one song where a bunch of people get killed.
That was what we like.
Yeah, little ultra violence never hurt anybody. I mean, unless you are the one that's getting killed. But yeah, that's the Frank Meyer promise.
Perfect. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
Take
Talk to you soon.
care.
Bye bye.